Saudi Arabia is once again changing its story and how a Washington Post writer was killed inside one of its consulates. Now it says Jamal Khashoggi's murder was premeditated, and that contradicts the country's prior claim that he died in a fist fight. Khashoggi's eldest son, Salah, seen here receiving condolences from the Saudi crown prince, reportedly left Riyadh for the U.S. today with his family after the kingdom lifted a travel ban on him. In Ottawa, more pressure on the prime minister to cancel that contract to sell these Saudi military armored vehicles.
Part of the terms of that contract agreed to was total confidentiality around that contract. So I cannot give details at this point of what is in the contract. Suffice it to say, possible penalties would be in the billions of dollars. But that is something we are looking at right now. As I've said, our focus right now is working with the international community to get answers on the murder of Jamal Khashoggi and ensure that there are consequences.
Also today, the European Parliament passed a non-binding resolution condemning Khashoggi's murder and urging an EU-wide arms embargo on Saudi Arabia. For more on the story, let's bring in David Chatterson, former Canadian ambassador to Saudi Arabia. He joins us now from Kelowna, BC. Ambassador, thanks for your time.
Thank you, Marilla, for having me.
This latest admission by the kingdom, do you think it changes anything or not at all?
I don't think it really changes anything. I mean, they're sort of catching up to the story. Most of us that have been watching this expected at some point that there would be this kind of admission. I mean, their story wasn't believed by anyone previously.
I've heard some theorize that because the royal family is so insulated, living in a bubble, that they don't really understand how this is playing out or how this would play out. Do you agree with that?
Yes, I would. The royal family has never really been held accountable for their decisions or actions. They have very little experience being questioned repeatedly, particularly by foreigners. They don't really understand public relations whatsoever. I think that's very, very clear. And this story has been moved by the Turkish authorities day by day, week by week, in a direction such that they now find themselves in a corner and have no experience about dealing with that situation.
Would the royal family be shocked by this?
I think it's safe to say they are extraordinarily upset. Up to this point, the Saudis have always tried to keep things quiet. They don't like to be in the news. They don't really give interviews unless they have a message to put out. So yes, they're not looking for this at all. It's tarnishing their reputation.
How does this particular storyline and this action, which we can now attribute to the Saudis, play out? What I mean by that, has there been anything comparable in the past that did get maybe pushed under the rug a little bit, that they thought maybe this could also be pushed under the rug?
Well, most of what they have done in the past has been domestically. It's been within the borders. They don't have a press that's going to question these things. I mean, this is the first time it's really been exposed globally as it happened outside of the country, and because Turkey had an interest in airing it, shall we say.
Let's talk about that. What is the interest of Turkey in airing it?
Well, Turkey and Saudi Arabia are vying for leadership in the Sunni world and for regional influence. And I think Turkey is also, it's having some economic difficulties and has had quite a dispute with the United States, and they are looking to mend bridges with the U.S. and to create more distance between the U.S. and Saudi Arabia.
Have we then, or why haven't we seen Saudi Arabia push back on Turkey? They really haven't to this point.
Well, I think they are very concerned with what the Turkish authorities know and what evidence they may have. And
so Turkey has the upper hand here.
Certainly, there's no question.
And Saudi Arabia, because they don't know what is in that hand, is sort of being held at bay.
Yeah, I'm not sure what Saudi Arabia could do other than to come clean with a full admission. I mean, they can't manage this story, clearly. And the story is not really a story that should be managed. It's an outrageous situation that they got caught doing.
Do you think, or what do you foresee the fallout to be? And I mean, what do you think world leaders will, in the end, decide to do? We've already seen Germany say it's not going to ship arms to Saudi Arabia. We've seen the EU now say they want to embargo weapons being sent to Saudi Arabia. What else do you foresee happening here?
Well, until and unless you see France, the UK, and most importantly, the US say they are going to stop shipping weapons, weapons are going to continue to be shipped to Saudi Arabia. I mean, in my mind, there's no question whatsoever. I could see the world community censoring Saudi Arabia, but as a producer of 10 million barrels of oil a day, I really can't see sanctions having much of any effect. And I think the most interesting question here is, what actually are we trying to do? Are we trying to express our dismay or disgust at this, this brazen killing? Or are we trying to actually shift Saudi Arabia in a direction that we want it to go in?
Maybe the world's trying to do a bit of both of those.
Well, I think perhaps so. I just hope we don't lose sight on the real objective here, which is to change their behavior, as opposed to punishing them so that we feel that we've done something.
Got it. David Chatterson, sir, I got to leave it there, but I appreciate you joining us today.
Thank you, Marilla.
Thank you. Have a good night.